Lack of access to clean water a threat for earthquake victims. National Planning Summit to discuss future disasters. And EDA Ranu staff strongly oppose merger.
This is the National EMTV News with Meribah Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us for Monday's news. As relief supplies continue to be delivered to earthquake-affected communities, there is another looming disaster. In a briefing today, ONeill Search Limited said the lack of access to clean water sources for many communities had increased the risk of sickness. The company is now working with its partners, including state agencies, in an effort to deliver clean water to communities to prevent the spread of waterborne diseases. Since the start of relief efforts, ONeill Search Limited, together with other development partners, have been taking the lead in providing relief to affected communities. Today, its Managing Director, Petition, provided an update on the progress of their support. He said in recent days, road access into some areas had improved, which he said would allow for more supplies to reach some communities.
We're still carrying out activities, and we'll continue that this week as what we consider to be first responder activities. We're really pleased to say that the roads are opening up and heavier material can be now delivered into various areas across the two provinces and Western Province, of course, 3 provinces. It's early days, I suppose, but it's something that I know the various committees that we talk to and are working with are very much aware and are building a capacity to manage. But in reality, it's really the front line. It's one thing to get material to Hagen and to Tari and others. Pleased to say that you can get much of that material now out by road, but there's still a use for helicopters.
However, whilst supplies are starting to reach communities, there are other issues that authorities will now have to deal with. Among these, the high level of mental trauma that these people face.
A lot of people are pretty traumatised, and I think they've been weakened physically and certainly challenged mentally since the earthquake happened. So their resilience is enormous, but there's only so much you can work through and manage. So I think there's an ongoing issue out there which we need to manage and manage as a collective.
Another issue is the imminent threat of an outbreak of waterborne diseases.
We're still seeing a lot of medical cases. We're seeing people suffering now from diarrhoea and generally speaking as a result of poor access to badly contaminated water, etc.
Among its relief efforts, ONeill Search has deployed a dedicated medical team to reach affected communities. These teams have already noted an increase in waterborne diseases, with several medical evacuations already carried out.
We have a dedicated helicopter for medical issues, which goes around the villages, and that they're certainly seeing a number of cases of that and are treating them where necessary. They're brought back into Moro for further medical treatment, and in certain circumstances they're medevac to Tari or Mendi, or Moresby, and we've had a number of medevacs to Moresby.
With the opening up of road connections between Hela, Southern Highlands and Mount Hagen, there are hopes that more relief supplies can be brought into affected areas. According to ONeill Search Managing Director Petition, the response from various stakeholders has been impressive. Their base at Moro has become the distribution hub for relief supplies, with an estimated 70,000 people across 70 villages already receiving relief supplies.
Each night we put out a report on what's happened during the day, what we've seen during the day. We're also collating information on villages that we go into, what damage is there, what their needs are, and the intelligence information is then passed back to the central committees for further action.
Able to reach, I think it's about 70 villages, close to about 70,000 people we've reached so far. That number is obviously growing, and it's been challenging with our teams because all these areas, villages are only accessible by chopper, and And weather, the weather plays a big part. Whether on a good day we can cover up to 15 villages.
The distribution of relief supplies into disaster-stricken areas in Hela has begun. The first lot of container trucks arrived in Tari yesterday and distribution began today. The villages of Dodomona, Huya, Walagu and Bosavi received first relief supplies via military choppers and the MAF. The supplies include rice, water, canned food, mosquito nets and tarps. A total of 45 military personnel, including Correctional Service, Australian Defence Force, police, public servants and oil search, are involved in the relief exercise. The relief distribution will continue for the next 10 days. A Hela community in Port Moresby has joined in the fundraising drive to provide relief support to their communities affected by the earthquake. The Hela Inaka Earthquake Relief Initiative is led mostly by mothers and youth who gathered yesterday to donate clothing and sell barbecue food for fundraising. A similar activity will be arranged for this Sunday, the 18th of March at the Mare Barracks Oval here in Port Moresby.
The community gathered at 5 Mile yesterday with two aims. The first is the immediate relief response to provide food and clothing support. Kathy says they have been keeping in touch with their family at the village and they know exactly the number of people being affected and what kind of relief assistance they need.
Kimiro, Kimia, Kimima. In our dialect, Huli dialect, it means I'm giving. So you can see I've done my part here. This group, we've done our part. Now we're reaching out to the community. You come and give me lend me a hand, and then all of us together can make a difference.
The second aim is to contribute to restoring the affected communities with materials to rebuild houses and infrastructure that was destroyed by the earthquake.
We want to do something. So we have gathered over the past few weeks, contributed in our way. As you can see, women and children have brought clothing that they had. We've got friends that have donated as well because they heard that there were houses displaced and people with no clothing or warm clothing in that sense. So we've brought that together. We will continue this initiative all throughout as a team.
UPNG Hela Students Association have also thrown their support for the cause.
As a student level, we can do whatever on our own capacity as a student to work with our mothers to provide relief to our province.
Stacey Yellow, National, MTV News.
And more donations are going to the people of Hela and Southern Highlands who were affected by the recent earthquake. The Lay Biscuit Company branch in Mount Hagen recently donated 2 40-foot containers of snacks carton biscuits as relief supply. The cartons have a retail value of 160,000 kina. The Mount Hagen Catholic Diocese will distribute them, especially to Catholic schools.
Total value of 160,000 towards your disaster relief and your church activities. So on behalf of the staff, we feel our support, our prayers are with the people who lost their lives and properties. Our prayers are with them.
The European Union is providing more than 430,000 kina to channel emergency assistance to affected communities in Hela and Southern Highlands provinces. The EU has also deployed an expert in water quality and waste management to provide expertise to the UN Disaster Assessment and Coordination Team. Some of the items distributed are emergency shelter and essential relief items such as tarpaulins, blankets, sleeping mats, mosquito nets, kitchen sets and hygiene kits. They also ensure first aid kits and health assistance are being provided to affected people. Former Prime Minister and current member for Moresby Northwest, Somare Morata, has attacked the government over the economy and the government's response to the recent earthquake. In a media statement, Somare claims decisions done by the ONeill government has crippled the country's finances. Prime Minister Peter ONeill also responded to these allegations.
The former Prime Minister and current Prime Minister had a go at each other through their media statements. Somare said for the last 3 years Papua New Guinea had been living dangerously thanks to the action of the Prime Minister, Peter ONeill. He said now those dangers are engulfing the nations and the Prime Minister's tardy response to the earthquake is an example of the corruption, waste and mismanagement he has presided over in the recent years that has crippled Papua New Guinea's finances. Few hours after Somare released his media statement, the Prime Minister responded saying Morata should be ashamed of himself after making incorrect claims about disaster relief operations following the earthquake. The Prime Minister is quoted saying what is the matter with this man that he would bluntly try to play political games in the middle of a natural disaster relief operation, unquote. The Prime Minister continued saying it was not the time for cheap politics and now was the time when the people needed solidarity and hard work from the political leaders. Somare said the earthquake was a national disaster and that Parliament needed to be recalled immediately so a national conversation on the emergency and recovery could take place. The Prime Minister said Parliament will be recalled and Somare can use this opportunity to debate. The Prime Minister said the focus of the government is to maintain relief operations and continue to restore services in the disaster area. Adelaide Sirokskari, National EMTV News.
A National Planning Summit next week will also be seeking views on how to manage and plan for future disasters. Planning Minister Richard Maru said the Cordova volcano emergency and the recent earthquake in the Highlands have again exposed serious weaknesses in the government system.
Lae City will play host to 400 delegates next week when the National Planning Department and the Moomba Provincial Government hold a planning summit that looks at ways to grow the economy.
This workshop is about formulating a new roadmap for Papua New Guinea over the next 5 years.
One of the main features of the summit will be disaster management and planning. The recent earthquake in the Highlands has again exposed the weaknesses in Papua New Guinea's disaster management response. Minister Maru says he wants to see better coordination going into the future.
The government is not going to take this lying down. We are going to, in the course of this year, seriously review the way we react to disasters and far better manage disasters. Then we will put in place a far better plan which is being discussed at the moment, and during the summit we will also have some discussions.
Disaster coordination has been one of the biggest challenges in disaster management. In the Hela and Southern Highlands, relief is slowly getting into affected areas, but it took more than a week before resources were mobilized. The government may have to look at the long overdue disaster fund as well as a permanent joint command for disaster management. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Lae.
Here with National EMTV News, the day's other stories after the break, including EDA Ranu staff protest merger with Water PNG, PNG Air wins top award, and an election petition dismissed. Stay tuned for the details. Welcome back to the news. EDA Ranu staff are strongly against the proposed merger of EDA Ranu and Water PNG. Staff say the government must explain why the merger is being considered. Staff also presented a petition to the management of EDA Ranu to bring to the board for consideration.
Government's directive to merge two water companies has not gone down well with staff of EDA Ranu. This afternoon, staff met with members of the management to know the status of the demands. A member of the senior management team says details of the merger was not made public.
The merger, the specific details, it's not before us.
EDA Ranu staff have presented a petition to the management earlier. Representatives say majority are against the option to merge with Water PNG. They are also unsure of the benefits and working contracts.
We don't know what the new employer is going to do, what the merger is going to do. So we have got to be, we want all these things sorted out.
The National Executive Council decision will see EDA Ranu and Water PNG come under an entity to provide water and sewage services around the country. The plans to merge have left more questions than answers in the workforce.
We want our terms and conditions to remain as we are, to be untouched. We don't want to go down. We don't want them to come in and say something else. Oh, sorry, no, we can't pay you that much.
For now, EDA Ranu staff say they will wait until the board deliberates on the petition before employees make the next move.
Chair lady is adamant that now that I said that I have these things now before us now, lunchtime. Basically, it came to us now, and I insisted to her that please, this is urgent. Call a board meeting now to address your issues here.
EDA Ranu employs over 500 men and women in different fields. For now, there are no threats of shutting down the water system in the city. Jack Lapava Jr., National MTV News.
PNGA's rebranding program, launched in November 2015, has been recognized by the 2018 Rebrand 100 Global Awards. Every 2 years, the Rebrand Award nominates 5 companies which have demonstrated excellence in rebranding, both in terms of strategy and execution. The 5 nominees are chosen from all around the world. PNGA was one of the top 5 at the most recent awards, along with Hewlett-Packard, Coty Inc., Cadillac and Bhutan Tourism. The award recognizes work done to develop a distinctive image and one that reflects the proud PNG focus the airline has. Having design elements from around the country as key images on the livery and uniform design has meant that people from all around PNG can identify more closely with the airline. PNGA's Chief Commercial Manager, Paul Abbott, says this goes hand in hand with the company being owned by a great range of Papua New Guineans through the majority shareholdings of NASFund and the MRDC Group. PNGA says it operates each week, serving 24 ports throughout the country, carrying over 450,000 passengers each year. Moving on, in this boom and bust cycle, experts have advised the government to consider diversifying the Papua New Guinean economy in order to make it more resilient against these market uncertainties. Publishers of the annual OBG Country Report, the Oxford Business Group, have alluded to the PNG market being highly lucrative, especially regionally.
Diversification of the economy has been a topic of discussion for a while now. The end of the construction phase of the PNG LNG project and the beginning of the exporting phase coincided with a drop in oil and gas prices globally, thus affecting anticipated returns. Because of said less-than-stellar profits from the extractive industries, stakeholders from public and private sector have continuously urged the government to diversify the economy, to focus on agriculture and tourism, and to avoid falling ill with the dreaded Dutch disease. In a recent interview with EMTV, the Oxford Business Group followed the cue and urged the government to diversify and focus on other vital sectors in order to grow the economy.
I do think what we like is the sort of rhetoric we're now hearing from the government. Seems to be very serious about trying to spearhead diversification and develop the agriculture business. It's very important because, as we say, it's a very fertile country. Just it's very difficult to get that produce to market. But we've seen innovations in areas like, for example, the new dairy farm that's come up. So I think what is required is really strategic thinking and innovative thinking.
At a recent panel discussion hosted by the Oxford Business Group, NASFund CEO Ian Tarutia stated that despite currently being at the bust side of the boom and bust cycle, PNG companies have fared well, showing resilience.
A lot of other businesses here in PNG haven't closed shop. BSP, for example, I look across there in the room and they've gone the other way. They've actually grown and expanded. So the point about business in country is, whilst we are going through a painful period, albeit short term, they are still resilient and have faith in the country. No one that I've seen has actually shut down. They've had to change the way they do business. They've had to make some short-term additions, as in, employment is always the first casualty, but no one has actually shut shop. So, it's not all doom and gloom.
Leon Gerari, National MTV News.
Papua New Guinea is considering plans to improve competition in the telecommunication industry to deliver lower costs and more innovative digital products. The challenge is ensuring its citizens have the basic skills needed to use mobile devices that allow them access to vital services such as mobile banking. The key challenge that all APEC member economies now face is how to develop the policies and strategies that will allow digital economies to be harnessed. Through APEC, PNG is hoping to achieve this. Justice Martin Ipang has dismissed an election petition by former member for Menyamia, Benjamin Philip, against sitting member Thomas Pelika and the Electoral Commission.
The National Court in late today ruled in favor of member for Menyamia, Thomas Pelika, as the first respondent and the Electoral Commission of PNG as second respondent. Justice Martin Ipang struck out the 7 grounds of the election petition by former member for Menyamia, Benjamin Philip, against the 2 respondents. Pelika's lawyer, Brendan Lai, said facts provided by the petitioner were insufficient.
The law requires that the identities of the persons who were alleged to be unduly influenced to have been clearly pleaded. The election petition as filed by Benjamin Philip did not meet that requirement. As such, His Honour found that all 7 grounds of undue influence were incompetent.
Election petitions are cases that an aggrieved candidate unsuccessful in an election has the right to file. The petitioner should file a court proceeding that is competent and meets the requirement of the law. The election petition by Benjamin Philip was filed on the 25th of August 2017.
It's something that is a challenge to represent or defend a sitting member. But at all times, the onus is on the petitioner to properly plead the allegations in a concise, logical manner, and to plead the facts that the petitioner alleges constitute the grounds for invalidating an election.
Now that the case is dismissed, Pelika said he will be concentrating on delivering services in his electorate.
Before the sun goes down, I will make sure that I put some tangible development back in the village with the type of money that is going to the districts right now.
Julie Badui Owa, National EMTV News, Leh.
Fundraising for the 54th Medical Symposium was launched in Madang on the weekend. A total of 102,000 kina was raised at the first fundraising. The Medical Symposium will be held from the 3rd to the 7th of September with the theme Rural and Public Health. Chairman of the 2018 Medical Symposium, Dr. Vincent Atua, says they are expecting at least 500 medical specialists from PNG and abroad. Dr. Atua added they are looking at raising at least 350,000 kina to host the event this year. Modilon General Hospital is the hosting venue this year, with support from partners Divine Word University, the PNG Institute of Medical Research and the Madang Provincial Health Authority. City Mission officially launched its new youth program in Madang Province. The launch sees City Mission continue to expand beyond Port Moresby and Leh. The Australian government is pleased to support City Mission's expansion to Madang through its Youth Life Skills program for young men. The Life Skills program runs for 18 months and targets young men, including those who have experienced substance abuse and poverty. The training package includes basic literacy and numeracy skills, vocational training, counseling and mentoring. Here with National EMTV News, we'll have more on the other side of these messages. Don't go away. Welcome back to the news. Turning us overseas now, and recovery efforts are underway in North Queensland as flood waters recede slower than expected. The government has already made funding available to help those inundated businesses, residents and farmers. It comes as authorities warn of health and safety risks, with sharks and crocodiles also on the move.
Well, the sun is shining and there's not a cloud in the sky today, but there is still lots of that brown, murky water through the streets of Ingham this morning. For the past 4 days, this town has been virtually cut in half by floodwaters. People haven't been able to get into town to get supplies. Some places north of here, like Halifax, remain isolated. They're only accessible by boat. Now, the water is receding very slowly. Once it does drop, the full extent of the damage will be revealed. It's estimated around 90% of homes here have been affected in some way. The roads and bridges have also been badly damaged. The Premier has declared this a disaster.
We've got community recovery people that will be on the ground as soon as the highway is open to Townsville. And then there'll be assistance immediately available. So there's immediate hardship, $180 for an individual, up to $900 for a family.
In the past week, almost a metre of water has fallen in some parts of North Queensland. That will affect cane farms and banana farms in the region as well. The longer that water sits on the ground, the more chance of damage being done. There was a mass rescue operation too to get more than 70 children and school teachers stranded at a camp near Tully back to safety. They've been stuck there since Wednesday. Last night they spent their first night at home in their beds.
Yeah, we did a lot of table tennis and playing handball undercover because it just kept raining. We couldn't go out because it was quite flooded.
Of course, lurking beneath all that brown, murky water are plenty of dangers, including bull sharks. There's been sightings of bull sharks feeding on bait, fish swimming up the bitumen, and there's also been lots of crocodiles spotted. This is, of course, croc country. The Mayor has shared with us some pictures that his wife took of a crocodile just outside their living room window. He says, though, once this floodwater has cleared, come and visit the town of Ingham because the barra will be biting.
Investigators are working to determine the cause of a deadly helicopter crash in New York. The tourist chopper was caught on camera as it came down in the city's East River, killing at least 2 of those on board.
Police have described the dramatic rescue that took place on New York's East River tonight as they tried to save those passengers trapped inside the helicopter wreck. It was just after 7 o'clock local time when the chopper plunged into the water just off 90th Street between Manhattan's Upper East Side and Queens. There were 6 people on board, 5 passengers tightly strapped inside and a pilot who survived.
I sort of landed to the side and then I flipped over, and then for about a minute and a half we didn't see anything. No one came out of the water. He was yelling for help and we were on the phone with 911.
Police divers arrived soon after to find the helicopter submerged 15 metres underwater. They battled strong currents to pull 3 people out alive, but in a critical condition. 2 others were declared dead at the scene.
It was tough. It was a tough operation.
It's a great tragedy that we had occur here on a otherwise quiet Sunday evening.
The aircraft is a Eurocopter AS350 owned by Liberty Helicopter Tours. It had been chartered for a photo shoot today. The helicopter was recovered and towed to a nearby pier, evidence now in a transport safety investigation.
Tens of thousands of people have lined the streets to watch Melbourne's longest-running, much-loved Moomba Parade. Moomba is celebrated during the Labour Day long weekend and has been held since 1955. This year marks 64 years and millions of Australians are expected to turn up for the festival at the long weekend.
Well, hello, and as you can see, this year's Moomba Parade is an absolute ride of colour and dance and singing, and thousands have turned up to watch all the action along King's Domain. High-spirited performers dance their way along the new parade route. Fabulous floats delighted around 80,000 spectators. The parade featured floats designed by children, including 6-year-old Lego enthusiast Shrey.
I got this design from my Lego construction sites that I used to make with my Lego because I really like Lego.
Moomba Monarchs Christy Swan and Jimmy Giggle reigned over the spectacular multicultural event.
It is so brilliant. I just can't believe how many people are here and what an absolute honour this is.
As well as children, there were plenty of older ladies dancing their way down the parkland here, including 88-year-old Kat Carroll from Glamourpuss Studios. She started dancing in her 60s, and guess what? There's no stopping her.
It's wonderful. And besides, if I was at home, I'd be in a rocking chair, and I'm not a rocking chair person.
But the biggest round of applause was reserved for our emergency services. The floats will remain on display at Linlithgow Avenue this afternoon ahead of tonight's Moomba Grand Finale, which of course is the fireworks at 9:30.
And you're with National EMTV News. We'll have some sporting updates in Trukai Sports after these messages. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. We begin with Rugby League. The Canberra Raiders will be flying Kato Otio's mother to their next home match. The Raiders will take on the Newcastle Knights at Canberra Stadium this Saturday.
In honour of the late Kato Otio, the Raiders will fly Otio's mother, Joyce, to Canberra. A cultural jersey will have Otio's name on it and will probably be for their Round 10 clash against the Cronulla Sharks. The jerseys will then be auctioned to raise further money for Otio's Memorial Fund. A memorial service will be held after the game, with both the Raiders and Knights players involved, and the Capital Wantoks will perform during and after the match, with Otio's family also potentially on the field for the service. The Raiders have helped raise almost 12,000 Australian dollars
through their GoFundMe page for Otto to help go towards buying his mother a house. They're also looking at setting up a scholarship for PNG Rugby League players. The Canberra Raiders will take on the Newcastle Knights this Saturday at Canberra Stadium. Elijah Levet, National EMTV Sports.
To athletics now, and Pacific Sprint Queen Toya Whistle has been stopped from participating at the Commonwealth Games. This comes after she showed unsporting action at the Mini Pacific Games in Vanuatu. She was beaten comfortably by Cook Island Patricia Taya, and during the medal presentation ceremony did not show up. It is through her actions that cost her a placing at the Commonwealth Games. Whistle has also left husband and wife coaching team Tony and Alison Fairweather and is currently back here in Papua New Guinea. Dates and locations for the OFC Women's Nations Cup and its qualifier have been confirmed by the OFC Competitions Department. New Caledonia will host the 11th edition of Oceania's premier women's competition at the end of the year. Cook Islands, New Caledonia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Samoa, Tahiti and Tonga will have automatic entry to the main draw of the OFC Women's Nations Cup. The competition begins on the 18th of November. And we'll have more of Trukai Sports after these messages. Don't go away.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. To some sporting news abroad now, and it's the most talked about hamstring in football, and Patrick Dangerfield sent the media on a wild goose chase in Geelong this morning.
Funny scenes down here in Geelong. Of course, yesterday Dangerfield injured his hamstring. We arrived here to see if we could find the great man, and for once he was media shy. His dad John was driving the car around doing laps, trying to basically escape the media, and in the meantime Patrick Dangerfield himself was filming his own movie on social media about the great escape. Let's have a look.
Exit 1, premiership stand. As you can see, they're waiting. Let's find somewhere else. I've been caught. Steve-O doesn't miss an opportunity. Look at him. I thought I'd escaped him, but he's got me.
Well, when we did catch up with Danger, he was fairly expansive on the biggest hamstring story certainly in a long time in footy. A big name Danger. He will have a scan on that tomorrow.
Yeah, it's not ideal. That being said, there's plenty more people in far worse situations than I am, so you need a little bit of perspective, I think. Yep. And we won't know until there's any scans where it's sort of at.
Is it high or low or down near the knee or high up near the buttock?
Not sure at the moment. It sort of feels pretty general. So until we get a scan, and given the fact I've never done one before, I'm sort of uncertain with where it all sits.
And this story's so bizarre and so big, a bit of a circus, that Gary Ablett, the other great one, well, he was sort of taking second prize today as the story, but he emerged. We had a chat to him as well about his chances of getting up for round one.
To golf, and Tiger Mania is back, and it seems only a matter of time before Tiger Woods is back at the winner's circle after he secured his biggest result in 5 years on tour. He's finished tied for second at the latest event in Florida, just a shot behind winner Paul Casey. But it was Woods who stole the headlines with a putt that suggests a return.
Tiger Woods wearing red, closing on the lead. That old feeling is back.
Are you serious? When you stood over that ball right there, what were you thinking?
Just get the right speed. Just putt to the picture and get the right speed. And I hit it with what I thought was good dying pace. And it took forever for that grain to take it. And I finally did at the very end.
The rest were simply thinking he's back and hoping he could produce another birdie at 18 to force a playoff with clubhouse leader Paul Casey.
I actually thought he was going to win today before the round started. And I said a couple of times, I said, if I don't win this thing, I actually want Tiger to win it.
And so did the fans, but this time it wasn't to be.
So Tiger Woods will come up one shot short.
I had a good shot at winning this golf tournament, and a couple putts here and there. Could have been a different story.
And with Woods seemingly ready to add a new chapter to his story, the Tiger effect has been in full swing in Florida. TV ratings at the Valspar Championship were up 181% on last year's third round, as fans hope to witness Woods' first win since 2013.
You just feel the crowd pulling for him.
And as ratings soar, the odds on him winning next month's Masters have been slashed. He's now the second favourite at 10-1.
I've been here before a few times, and so it felt very comfortable. As a whole, I felt very, very good about what I did this week.
If there's any doubt the Tiger's back, there's no doubt after what we've seen this week.
To rugby union now, and 23 years after men's rugby went professional, New Zealand's world champion Black Ferns women's team will finally be paid for playing. 30 players will become semi-professionals this season, but they hope that within a few years they'll be able to ditch their day jobs and go fully professional.
The girls at St Mary's are the best college rugby players in Wellington. From today, they can dream of getting paid to play, like Black Ferns fullback and policewoman Salika Winiata, who until now has made sacrifices to be a world champion Black Fern.
It's definitely going to take a lot of stress and pressure off girls who were in two minds as to whether or not they can continue to play rugby, just purely financially, really.
Winiata will be one of 30 players paid a retainer between $12,500 and $20,000 for 14 hours rugby work a week. That'll be topped up by weekly in-camp payments and a portion of a World Cup legacy fund. The weekly payments will be $2,000, equal with the junior and Māori All Blacks, but well short of the $7,500 the All Blacks get while in camp. All up, the top Black Ferns could earn $45,000 as a semi-professional rugby player each year. When you looked at the money, did you think to yourself, am I being paid what the blokes are being paid?
No, to be honest, I mean, that's a long way away yet, you know, with equality. I think it's all about being fair, and that's what we've prided ourselves on with this whole process.
A long way away because the men's game still earns the rugby union much more than the women's.
If there wasn't an international market for All Blacks, we might not be spending the amount of coin we have to spend to retain them. But in an ideal world, it should be equal for men, equal for women, no doubt about it.
The Players Association is now challenging corporates to help change the equation.
We just think that commercially, a lot of our leading corporates are dropping the ball. They should step up and they should embrace women's sport and really get in behind it in the same way that they look to do with men.
Today's deal does give the Black Ferns another valuable form of support though. If they fall pregnant, NZR will keep them in on a different role after the first trimester and stump up $15,000 for the baby and a support person to travel with them on rugby duties for the first year.
I think, you know, after this last World Cup, we've got two girls that have fallen pregnant, so it's actually quite perfect timing.
Life's just become much easier to be a Black Fern, and that can only be a good thing for the future of women's rugby.
To cricket now, and AB de Villiers' first Test century in 3 years has left Australia struggling to save the second Test against South Africa.
Was already facing a provisional 2-game suspension for a brush with Aussie captain Steve Smith, but it could get worse after delivering a send-off for David Warner.
Bowled in, what a beauty! That is a beauty! What a delivery that is!
No, I don't think that was necessary at that stage. You have done the work, you have gotten the results.
Warner was the first of 3 wickets for Rabada on day 3 after AB de Villiers' first Test century since 2015 put the Proteas in the box seat to level the 4-match series. The Aussies will resume day 4 on 180 for 5, just 41 runs ahead of the hosts.
And that's it for Trukai Sports. We go for a break. When we come back, the weather details for the next 24 hours.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
A look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours in the southern region. Cloudy weather for Alota. Some showers expected in Port Moresby, Daru and Kerma, and some storms in Popondetta. To the Momase region, rain and showers expected in Lae, while in Madang, rain and some thunderstorms expected in Wewak and Vanimo. To the New Guinea Islands region, rain and storms expected in Lorengau, Kokopo and Rabaul, showers expected in Kavieng, Kimbe and Buka. And in the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabeg, you can expect some rain and some storms over the next 24 hours. I'll look at the forecast for small ships for the next 24 hours, but first there is a strong wind warning current for all coastal waters of Finschhafen through Vitia Strait, Dampier Strait, to CSE Island, to Long Island, Medang, to Bogia, Wewak, Aitape, Vanimo, and the northern PNG Indonesian border, including the New Guinea Islands. To look at the forecast for small ships, the waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwai Island, to Kerma, to Yule Island, to Hood Point, to Somare Island, sea 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters of Finschhafen and western Milne Bay Islands with waters of Finschhafen through Vitias and Dampier Strait to CSE Island to Long Island, and with waters of Manus and its western group of islands, seas 1.5 to 2.5 meters. Waters of Somare Island to Cape Vogel to Finschhafen, seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. And waters of Long Island to Medang, Bogia, Wewak, Aitape, Vanimo, and the northern PNG Indonesian border, and with waters of New Britain to New Island and Bougainville, seas 2 to 3 meters. And a look at the ocean forecast. The Coral Sea sees light to moderate with southeast to southwesterly winds at 10 to 20 knots. Solomon Sea sees light to moderate with northwest to southwesterly winds at 10 to 20 knots. Bismarck Sea sees moderate to rough with northwesterly winds at 20 to 34 knots. And the Pacific Ocean sees moderate to rough with northwesterly winds at 20 to 34 knots.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
And before we go, a recap of our top stories this evening. Lack of access to clean water a threat for earthquake victims. National Planning Summit to discuss future disasters. And EDA Ranu staff strongly oppose merger. And that's the news, sport and weather for today, beginning another working week on this Monday, the 12th of March 2018. On behalf of the EMTV News team, pleasant viewing. Good night.